Hello there. We are starting a new series today. Don't worry, other series will be completed. Since I have more time, I will mix it up. Today we're starting a series called David Koresh and the Assyrian. And that's really super important to understanding David Koresh and understanding how he thought about the Bible and how he used the Bible and etc. Since this is a history channel, we need to understand the history of how he did that and also be talking about the mistakes he made and why he was wrong from a factual point of view. So anyway, to introduce this series, we're going to watch the beginning of a very, very excellent history on the Assyrian. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. I'm going to watch maybe about 30 minutes of it with you guys, kind of a reaction video. I've seen it before, but it's really cool. I'll certainly watch it again. And maybe you guys can learn something. And hopefully you'll watch the whole thing and I'll be quoting from parts of it anyway, because it contains a lot of history about the Assyrian that David Koresh, he would have done well to know, but he didn't know. When he didn't know something, he would just make it up. So anyway, let's go ahead and start the show.
In the year 401 BC, at the height of the period known as the Greek Golden Age, a Persian prince named Cyrus the Younger was fighting a bitter civil war against his brother and was trying to seize the throne of Persia. To help him in this fight, he hired a mercenary army of mostly Greek soldiers, 10,000 men who traveled the long road to Persia to fight on his behalf. Among them was the Greek writer and adventurer named Xenophon, and he later wrote about this expedition in his work entitled Anabasis. Xenophon and his companions met the enemy Persian army at the Battle of Cunaxa, on the banks of the Euphrates River, and they gave the Persian prince Cyrus value for his money. The Greek heavy troops beat the Persians back and delivered a victory for the man who had hired them. But when the dust of battle had cleared, they heard the bad news. Cyrus the Younger had been killed, apparently knocked from his horse by a young common soldier. His claim to the throne of Persia had died with him, and the war was over. For the Greeks, this must have been heartbreaking. Their long journey, the victorious battle, and all their sacrifices had been for nothing. Their general had also been killed, and all of their senior commanders captured, leaving them without a leader and stranded in the middle of a foreign land. Now Xenophon and what remained of his 10,000 men had to find their way home to Greece. They knew that their only route was to reach the Black Sea, which lay across the wide deserts of what is today Iraq.
And they had to walk.
They were terrified. They had few supplies, and the enemy army was already pursuing them close behind. They hastily elected some leaders from among them, and Xenophon was one of them. He told his men to throw away everything they carried, shedding weight in order to outrun their enemies. And so they pelted across the deserts and the fertile river lands dotted with date palms, following the course of the river Tigris
must have been
north.
In shape, man.
And it's while they fled in this manner that they stumbled upon something that must have made them stop in their tracks. It was the enormous, crumbling ruin of a city, completely deserted, and full of the vast ruins of ancient buildings. This city was larger than anything Xenophon had seen back home in Greece, and later he wrote about this discovery in his work Anabasis.
Kai hoi men polemioi, hou to praxantes apelthon, hoi de Hellenes asphalos poreuomenoi.
The Greeks continued their march unmolested through the remainder of the day, arrived at the Tigris River. Here was a large, deserted city. Its wall was 25 feet in breadth, 100 in height. The whole circuit of the wall was 11 kilometers. It was built of clay bricks, rested upon a stone foundation 6 meters high.
There's no wood.
Nearby this city was a pyramid of stone, a plethrum in breadth, and 2 plethra in height. And upon this pyramid were many barbarians who had fled away from the neighbouring villages.
Hypsos dioplethron epitautes, polloi ton barbaron, esan ek ton plesion komon apopefeogotes.
But Xenophon didn't have time to linger.
No,
The
gotta
pursuing
run.
Persians were right behind them, and he couldn't spare any time to explore the
Boy, they
river.
must have really wanted those guys,
They
man.
dashed
They're
onwards,
chasing them for
following
hundreds
the
of
river
miles.
north. But then, only a day or two later, the Greeks came across another ruin. This one even larger and more impressive,
This is Iraq, by the way.
surrounded by an enormous series of crumbling walls.
Enteuthen de poreuthes
Modern day Iraq.
henna parasagas, hex prostekos erem, meg.
The Greeks marched 34 kilometers to a great stronghold, deserted and lying in ruins.
I mean, that's,
The
I'm
foundation
assuming
of
that's
its
what's
wall
still the
was
ruins
made of
today,
polished
right?
stone, full of shells.
They're still,
It was 15
after
meters in
thousands of
breadth
years, there's still
and
part of
50
it
in
left.
height. Upon this foundation was built a wall of brick, 15 meters in breadth and 30 meters in height, and the circuit of the wall was 30 kilometers.
Hote apollusan tenarchen hypoperson medoi.
Once again, they had no time to stop. But it's clear that the sight of these lonely, crumbling ruins affected Xenophon. For days afterwards, he asked any local people he encountered who had built
And they're
such enormous constructions all alone out there in the desert. No one he spoke to could tell him anything, and it seemed no one even knew the names of these great cities.
Amazing.
Some people thought they might have been built by the Medes, a people who now occupied the area. Others told fantastical stories about the gods bringing down fire and thunder to destroy these ancient walls, killing everyone who had once lived within them. Today, we do know the names of these cities, and it's thought that Xenophon, at the end of the 5th century BC, was the earliest person to stumble upon them and write an account. These were the cities of Nimrud and Nineveh. At the time when Xenophon stumbled across these ruins, nearly 2.5 millennia ago, the first stones of the Parthenon in Athens had been laid only 50 years earlier. The Colosseum in Rome would not be built for another 500 years. But the city of Nineveh had already been an ancient ruin for more than 2 centuries. This mighty city had flourished, boomed into a towering capital, home to hundreds of thousands of people. It had given birth to some of the ancient world's most beautiful art and architecture, and then, all at once, fallen into dust. Xenophon and his men did eventually return to Greece, and when he wrote his memoirs,
They got away.
he gives special attention to those moments, when he looked out over the sand-blasted desert, the grasses sprouting between the crumbling bricks, as the wind battered his hair and tugged at his clothes. In those moments, Xenophon must have asked himself, who were these people who built such vast cities out here in the desert? How could such a great metropolis vanish so completely beneath the sands? And if so many people had once lived there, what in all the world could have happened to them?
Good question. Great music.
My name's Paul Cooper, and you're listening to the Fall of Civilizations podcast. Each episode, I look at a civilization of the past that rose to glory, and then collapsed into the ashes of history. I want to ask, what did they have in common? What led to their fall? And what did it feel like to be a person alive at the time, who witnessed the end of their world? In this episode, I want to look at one of the most remarkable ancient civilizations, the society known today as the Assyrian Empire. I want to explore how the Assyrians built their empire out of the ashes of the Bronze Age, and built an empire of iron that lasted for centuries. I want to show how they expanded and developed to become perhaps the world's first military superpower, as well as fostering an extraordinary flourishing of art and learning. And finally, I want to tell the story of what happened to cause their final, devastating collapse.
Okay, well, there you go. That's the introduction. So this channel is called Fall of Civilizations, and you can look it up on YouTube. That's part 13 because, you know, he does the Aztecs, the Mayans, all the great civilizations. And, you know, part 13 is about the Assyrians. And as I mentioned, the Assyrians are a huge topic when it comes to the branch Davidians and the students of the Seven Seals, I suppose, though we called ourselves the Davidian branch Davidians at one point, as you know. So this would actually be starting with that phase. And then at some point, I'm going to show you and let you listen to, when I say show, I got a transcript, and I'm going to let you listen to an argument that I had with David Koresh in 1987, in January of 1987, when I was 21 years old. And we don't have, it's not a huge argument, because, I mean, after all, he's the leader. I can only push so far. But yeah, he's saying, no, it didn't. I'm saying, yes, it did. No, it didn't. Yes, it did. A couple times, you know. We're arguing about a factual matter, which he was wrong. I can prove that. So anyway, we'll be getting to that probably in the next episode, or maybe an episode after that. But we need to talk about the Davidians and how they used the Assyrian, and especially use it for World War II. You know, working them in that way, and then the branch Davidians, Benjamin Rode used them and talked about them, and then we'll get into Vernon. I'm going to say Vernon because when he started with the Assyrian, he was Vernon. Actually, the David Koresh, not so much Assyrian, at least from the material I have. Yeah, remember, I left in '89, so I've only got really one tape of after I left, which is the foundation, which I'm going through, but he doesn't really talk too much about the Assyrian there. It's more the Babylonians, which he's interesting, his ideas between the Babylonians and the Assyrians. We'll get into that too. So anyway, that's it for now. Just an introduction to let you know what's coming. I hope you enjoy the show there, and I would encourage you to watch the whole thing. Also, I guess if people would like me to do more reaction videos, I guess I could do that. So yeah, leave a comment if you think that's a good idea. So anyway, signing off for now. See you later.